Welcome to the No House Advantage Strategy Show, presented by No House Advantage. That's kind of a good way to do it. I'm Eric Lindquist here. Last night here in Italy. I will be back in the States tomorrow. Thank goodness. I'll be able to start tending to all of the NFL needs that we have. We have week one coming up, but of course, Thursday night tonight, big night, Dallas Cowboys, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Greg, how excited are you? And how's it going, my dude?
I'm certainly more excited to be doing actual regular season NFL content than preseason content. I'm sure, like me, I've done a lot of preseason videos. I've done a lot of preseason short videos. And I don't really like talking about preseason NFL DFS that much. So I'm happy to talk about games that actually matter here. And, a game with a little bit of significance, the Dallas Cowboys, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, two teams that at least should be exciting offenses. And the Buccaneers are obviously one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl this year. The Cowboys should be much improved this year with Dak Prescott back. So looking forward to a game that should be pretty high scoring with some, pretty lofty props here overall and No House Advantage.
It's going to be incredible. I can't wait. I can't believe that we're finally here. But as you said, we're talking No House Advantage today. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. All of that goes a long way for us. But of course, we're talking No House Advantage where you have player props. And they have over 500 player props per day. It is one of the largest libraries that you can possibly find anywhere on the interwebs, sportsbook or not, in order to find all these player props to have access to. They have every sport you could imagine too. NBA when that starts back up, MLB's in full swing, quite literally, golf whenever that's available. They've got some great Thursday contests, but we're talking NFL today. And I'm telling you right now, use that promo code Awesemo, $25. It's up to $25 that you're getting free back in using that promo code Awesemo. I'm excited about it. I'm excited to dig in. You ready to go, my dude?
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. So, of course, we're talking Tampa Bay. We're talking Dallas here in this spot. Big news of the day. We've got like a lot of these pieces. The line just continues to move here towards the Buccaneers. It's now moved up to 52 total points here, only up half a point here from open. Of course, these lines have been out for absolutely ever. These are pretty sharp. It's kind of negligible line movement, but I see some 8.5s around the industry as well. What are you kind of seeing for the outlook of this game as a whole?
Yeah, for starters, and one thing that's also interesting is, No House Advantage for football. I think there are ways that we could build our lineup cards where the props are kind of going to be correlating with each other. So you can't play the same player in multiple prop cards. So you can't play Dak Prescott, his passing yards. You can't play his touchdowns. You can't play those together. But I do think it makes sense to maybe try to target Dak Prescott with some of his receivers. I think that's where it makes the most sense to find correlation here. Now, I think this game is going to be high scoring. In general, the line suggests this game is going to be high scoring. And that's where I think I want to go building some of my lineups here, is trying to focus on the quarterbacks, the wide receivers. In terms of some of the receivers in this game, though, I do think it's a little hard to figure out exactly who the primary target is going to be, particularly on the Buck side. So do you have any kind of thought on who the number one guy is going to be for Tom Brady this year?
For Tom Brady this year, I got to be thinking that it's going to be mostly Chris Godwin as a whole. I'm going more towards Godwin. Mike Evans, obviously, has the flashes. And Antonio Brown, they brought in, he had the rapport in the, one game that they played in New England, bringing him in halfway through the season, eradicated Tyler Johnson, Scotty Miller as the wide receivers, three that kind of existed there, 3 and 4 in whichever order. Antonio Brown going to be a big part of what they do, I think, going forward as well. I saw him in Miami during the live final as well. He was having his birthday party. Fun fact. So I think there's some good karma going towards some of my lineups tonight that are just geared towards Antonio Brown getting a bunch of passing game work. But if producer Tyler could pull up some of the props here on the front end, I'm not getting anything to come up here on my end. Maybe because I don't think No House Advantage is available here in good old Italy. That's probably what it is. Maybe they want to get to that, perhaps.
Yeah, probably not yet. Also, I don't know how big American football is over in Italy, but I'll bring up some of at least the individual plays. So Antonio Brown, the one that stands out to me the most, at least relative to our projection. Antonio Brown is an over/under of 4.5 receptions over on No House Advantage. We have him projected for 5.31 receptions. So that is a 12% chance of hitting, or where is this? 12% chance of hitting the over. So at least for this game, it's only a Thursday night game. It's only a handful of players to choose from. So Antonio Brown is an individual one. I think he's somebody who would correlate fairly nicely with Tom Brady. You brought up before Chris Godwin and bringing up some of his individual props. Let's see if I could find it here. So Chris Godwin, also him for receptions. He's a little bit higher, and these numbers seem about efficient. We have Chris Godwin, 67.5 is his receiving yard over under on Noah's advantage. We have him projected for 69.7. So that would be something I wouldn't really have a play on. Receptions, we have the over under on Noah's advantage at 5.5. That's something where we shade slightly towards the under, but once again, not in a real significant way. So at least relative to the numbers that are up on Noah's advantage, I'm more apt to go to Antonio Brown if I'm picking one of the receivers, just because he's projected so much lower in terms of the over-under there.
Yeah, I'm pulling up pretty much their entire 2020. I mean, the ball got spread around a lot. Mike Evans was the only receiver who got over 1,000 yards, 1,006 there, 14.4 yards per reception here. Antonio Brown, again, it's hard to assess considering he got there halfway through the season, 483 yards there, 10.7 per reception, but his average depth of target has generally been a little bit lower. A lot of screen passes, a lot of quick outs for him there. I still like Chris Godwin. I think he's going to long-term be the guy there. He only played 12 games last season as opposed to Mike Evans 16. Otherwise, Chris Godwin, I think, would have been the unquestionable number one in that spot. Mike Evans, the large beneficiary of not having Godwin and not having Antonio Brown for a run there where he ended up getting up to 13 touchdowns. So I'm gearing it more towards Chris Godwin. I'm thinking he's going to be more of my guy as well. But Antonio Brown, somebody else also that I think I would be a little bit bullish on. And I think on the last show that we also had here, we had Eitan, we had Ben Rasa talking a little football. I was tuning in for a little bit of that. And it seemed like Ben was on board with the Antonio Brown play as well. And I like to be on the side of Ben Rasa for a lot of these things. Can we also talk on No House Advantage? My favorite thing, week in, week out, I know it worked just flawlessly in 2020, quarterback interception props. I think you can find some really good value going to those over and over with these quarterbacks. Dak Prescott, 0.5. He's going to be throwing it a bunch. I got to think that this is going to be a negative game script for some of those guys. So, or I guess a positive game script in terms of passing attempts. If they're going to be trailing Tampa Bay, that line's moved up to -8.5 here in favor of Tampa Bay. What do you think about the interception props for both him and Tom Brady, considering I think there's some value there?
So I'm going to answer this question, not in the direct way you answered, but in a little bit of an alternative, which is we could only pick one Dak Prescott prop, and his over-under for passing touchdowns is 2.5. And so we have the under as one of the best overall plays for the Thursday night slate. So there's nothing wrong with the interception one. I think if you want to go over that, it is something we have with a 28.79% chance of hitting the over. But that 2.5 passing touchdown mark is so high that we have him project for 1.77 today. So with that being such a likelihood of hitting the under, I'd be more apt to play the under on Dak Prescott's passing touchdowns than the over on his interceptions. And, obviously it could be a game where they're trailing by a lot. It sets up as a favorable game script for Prescott where he has to throw a lot, but we haven't seen a lot of him. We haven't seen a lot of him playing recently. He had the devastating ankle injury last year. He had the shoulder issue in training camp this year. So I think that more likely than not, he's going to throw 1 or 2 touchdown passes. Then he's going to go 3. Then he's going to go for 3+ today.
Okay. I don't mind that whatsoever. For me, it's more of a narrative that exists on NHA every single week. Talk about it on week 1. I'll have a video out for NHA later here. Going to those interception props is generally a profitable thing, and it can work in both ways. Like for week 1, Aaron Rodgers is -200 around on a bunch of sports books to be able to use that information and utilize it over at NHA because their props are stagnant. You're playing peer-to-peer. You don't have to worry about the juice. You don't have to worry about laying a bunch of money in order to win a little. -200, a gigantic number for Aaron Rodgers there to not throw an interception against the Saints. And you can kind of get it on the other side. Tom Brady, would you possibly be leaning on less than 0.5 interceptions? Or is there another prop that you see out of Tom Brady that you find a little bit more advantageous?
At least in terms of interceptions, we do have that shading towards the over. I mean, only a 0.5 interception prop. We've been projected for 0.66. It's a 25.99% chance of hitting the over. So I'm just going to go to Tom Brady's box scores last year. And obviously, he's not a quarterback who turns the ball over a ton, except I still have to think there's going to be more games that he throws an interception than not. So I'll ask you, last year in the regular season, how many games do you think he threw an interception compared to games where he did not throw an interception?
Oh, I mean, that's a good question because I know he had 12 picks. I looked at that earlier in the day. So 12 picks on the season. I'll say that he had maybe 2 of them in 3 of them. So let's say 8 games.
Yeah, you're pretty spot on. He threw interceptions in 7 games. He had no interceptions in 9 games. So, to me, I just view that as pretty close to a 50-50 proposition. Yeah. The other thing actually that maybe does concern me a little bit about the projection we have with Tom Brady shading towards the over here is that this is a game where if it holds true to the line for this game, which, depending where you might look, it's, 8.5, 9 points. I don't know how much Tom Brady's going to have to throw the ball in the second half. And that could set up a situation where he could be risk adverse. He doesn't have to take chances. To me, the 0.5 interceptions, it's probably a stay away. I think it's pretty close to 50-50 proposition.
All right. And of course, these the projections, for week one are completely free. Make sure you're taking advantage of those while it lasts, because eventually those will go behind the paywall and you will be missing out. Lots of good information that exists there. We have the NFL player props tool, just like we do for everything. We've got right now, that's kind of in the works. The NFL boom bust tool is what we have going right now for all of your DFS needs there. We have the advanced stats. We have so many things behind the paywall you need to be checking out, but specifically week one, make sure you're checking out those NHA projections. Those come in a lot of handy. All right, let's talk some Dallas Cowboys football. Ezekiel Elliott, not a guy that I'm super high on for this evening. I don't know that Tony Pollard really kind of comes into any kind of a meaningful role. He only averaged 8 rushing attempts per game last season. It is still going to be Ezekiel Elliott for at least one more season. But how do you feel about his numbers over on NHA today?
Yeah, so looking at Ezekiel Elliott, the props we have for him here, there's ones for rushing touchdowns. And that is, we currently have him for 0.36. It's over under 0.5. Once again, when we're looking at Zeke, I'm just a little concerned about the game script in terms of him keeping the ball on the ground. So I think there is, it's close to a 50-50 chance of him scoring a touchdown or not. But part of that is that there's a pretty good chance that he ends up receiving a touchdown, particularly if it's going to be in the second half. The Cowboys are playing from behind. So we have a 32.27 chance of him having less than 0.5 rushing touchdowns, which I would feel differently if it was over under 0.5 total touchdowns for Zeke. But considering that we need it to be a rushing touchdown and the likely game script of this game, that is something that concerns me a little bit. And then also, I know you mentioned Tony Pollard, and Tony Pollard outplayed Elliott for a lot of last year.
Yes,
and I'm just not sure that Zeke is going to return to the same workhorse role that he had a couple of years ago. So I feel decently good about going to the under 0.5 touchdowns just based on our projections there.
Yeah, it's fair enough. Tony Pollard only had 2 games that he started, still had 435 yards, 4 touchdowns, went completely nuclear one game that Zeke was out. Zeke playing 15 games, starting all 15, under 1,000 yards, only 4 yards per attempt. The guy's just kind of dusty at this point. And it's a weird thing to say. He's just kind of been in regression mode for years now, and it's starting to catch up on him. They don't have the best offensive line the way that they did in the NFL 2 years ago. So I think things are trending towards Tony Pollard eventually, but I still don't know if it's going to be this year. I would like it to be this year because I feel like he's in a bunch of best ball things that I've got as well. Good old zero.
Which, by the way, sorry not to cut you off too much, but it's not even that I think Pollard's going to be the guy, but it's more a situation where, so often in the past, we saw Zeke was getting almost all of the touches and all of the snaps for the Cowboys. And there's just a chance that Tony Pollard ends up getting 25 to 30% of the snaps this year. And that in itself would just reduce some of the workload for Zeke. And then for this game in particular, where the Cowboys are such significant underdogs, it just sets up better for Elliott to be involved in the passing game in the second half than for them to just be grinding out the clock on the ground with them. So Zeke, in terms of his rushing yards, that's a fairly efficient number. We have over at No House Advantage, 7.5 is the over-under rushing yards where we have that projected at 64.9. So if I had to pick one, it would be the under, but I feel a little better about under 0.5 rushing touchdowns for him.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about that as well. This is also a Tampa Bay defense that is kind of built to stop the run and do little else. And looking at some of their game scripts from last year, that kind of tends to be the case. But they're also a very good football team, and teams are generally in a lot of pass-heavy flows because of that. All right, let's go to some of the wide receivers here in this spot. I'm pulling up our projected stats page again. We have so many things, so many tools that are available for week one. It's a little bit overwhelming, but it's also as good as it gets. I want to just absorb all of it these next couple of days, specifically for tonight. For all of you lucky people out there that get to be able to watch this game, I'm going to be on a plane, sad times. Maybe I'll get some live football. Who knows? Maybe flying into Paris and then they'll throw something there. I don't know. Is NFL popular in Paris? Who knows? But Cowboys wide receivers.
They don't even know it exists. Like, and they don't like Americans there. They're just there eating their croissants and building statues of Rudy Gay. But we did get a super chat here from Soldope1234.
Beautiful.
He asked, this is a season-long question, PPR question. He's asking A. Brown. I assume that's Antonio Brown. I assume that he means Antonio Brown, not AJ Brown. So probably Antonio Brown since he's playing tonight. But Antonio Brown or Kyle Pitts, who do you think scores more PPR points season long?
Oh, I'm going to play Kyle Pitts. But first of all, you get to play him at a tight end spot. I'm assuming you don't have a better tight end. And PPR, do you have two tight ends? Are you playing George Kittle or Travis Kelce above him? Because otherwise you're just playing Kyle Pitts at tight end. But in the event that you went Kelce and then Pitts later, just in this hypothetical, I still like Pitts. I'm obsessed with this Philadelphia-Atlanta game for week 1. I think that there's a massive ceiling, lots of unknowns. Kyle Pitts, 6'6", 240 pounds, basically a gigantic wide receiver, going to be filling some type of a pseudo Julio Jones role, and a 4.44 40. He is an absolute beast and could be a beast. And I think the potential is there, and you might not want to miss it at any point this year in the event that he just goes nuts.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, especially if we're going to consider, positionality. If you're playing in a fantasy league, just think of it this way. Who are you drafting first in drafts, Kyle Pitts or Antonio Brown? And it's universally Kyle Pitts, the ADP of these guys. I don't know it offhand, but I mean, what's Pitts going, like 40, 50 picks sooner than Antonio Brown? Do you know, like, roundabout what that number is?
Yeah, so Kyle Pitts, I just got done doing a draft this afternoon. So, he came in at like 46. I took him, of course. 46. Antonio Brown's generally been around mid-90s or like later, even in some drafts. Antonio Brown is a wide receiver 3 for all intents and purposes. He's the best wide receiver 3 in the entire NFL. But I got to think that it's still a spot where there's enough mouths to feed there. Even Ronald Jones, Leonard Fournette, Giovanni Bernard in the backfield, somebody who might have some kind of a passing game role here. Cameron Brate and specifically OJ Howard, if he's healthy. So many guys on the Tampa Bay offense, so many weapons that I think Kyle Pitts, it's him and Calvin Ridley. Have fun, you two.
Yeah, and once again, I think the other thing to consider too about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but other than that Antonio Brown, would it surprise you if he isn't on the roster at the end of the year? I mean, I think it's most likely, but he's had a little bit of a weird course of events over the last few years, and there's so many more weapons in that Tampa Bay offense where they have OJ Howard, they have Gronk, they have Mike Evans, they have Chris Godwin. Antonio Brown might very well end up being the 3rd or 4th overall receiving option on that team. Whereas with Atlanta, we could very confidently say that the majority of the targets are going to Pitts and Calvin Ridley there.
I mean, we're absolutely talking Antonio Brown into like 150 and 2 touches. So that's good times. Poor bastard. He's going to hear this and go to Pitts, and Pitts is going to do nothing week 1. I feel it coming, but you know what? At least I'll be miserable too. So I'm giving you the advice that I would do myself, because that is exactly what I'm doing. All right, let's move ourselves down the board here a little bit. I'm looking at some of these other plays. Is there something else that's just a little bit off the reservation that we haven't discussed? We've talked a little bit of the big boppers on the Tampa Bay side. We talked to Ezekiel Elliott. Maybe we should get to some of the wide receivers on the Cowboys side. Does anything stick out to you on NHA today that you want to take advantage of?
Well, one thing I want to point out is, because we talked about some of the receivers that we like from Tampa Bay, but how about one we don't like? And that's Mike Evans. And it's something that we have Ryan Nelson 02 in YouTube chat is bringing up, is that Mike Evans is a 6.5 over-under receptions over at No House Advantage. We have that hitting the under 31.93% of the time. 6.5 receptions is a massive number for Mike Evans, who, if I pull up his game logs from last year, there were not a lot of games where he went for 7+ receptions. And, even some of his bigger games were games where he wouldn't necessarily get targeted a massive amount, but he would just find the end zone a couple of times. So in the regular season, he went over 6 receptions 3 times the entire season. So you just take that in mind, that it's a very unlikely outcome, in my opinion, that he gets to 7, 8, 9 receptions. So for sure, I think the under on Mike Evans makes a whole lot of sense. And that's a good call by Ryan Nelson.
All right. Are there any, again, I can't see the board here right now at the moment, but are there any other things that just stick out to you? Oh, producer Tyler's the best over there. He's like, un momento, por favor. Also, that's not Italian, so I apologize to everybody involved. Is there anything else that kind of sticks out to you that we haven't discussed yet? Is there something that you're really like, this needs to be a play that I've missed?
Amari Cooper, his lines look pretty efficient to me. Just looking at 5.5 receptions, we have him projected for 5.9. Something else that I think is maybe a little bit difficult is trying to figure out, is the guy in the offense going to be CeeDee Lamb or Amari Cooper? And also with CeeDee Lamb, we have these numbers very close. The line over on the odds advantage compared to our projections. CeeDee Lamb has an over-under receiving yards 69.5. We project for 70.93. Receptions is over-under is 5.5 on no-house advantage. We have them at 5.61. So to me, the lines on CeeDee Lamb are pretty efficient. So the ones I kind of feel best about would be looking at, for Tampa Bay right now of what we talked about and going to the over for Antonio Brown, going the under to Mike Evans. And at the top, when I talked about trying to correlate some of the passing games together, if Antonio Brown's going to be getting more targets and more receptions, that means less target share and less balls going to Mike Evans. So I do like the correlation there.
Yeah, a lot of the NHA shows we did for NBA together, we discussed a lot of correlating plays and targeting an entire game environment. In the case that it shoots out, goes to double overtime, you get all of the fantasy goodness if you're playing all the overs, and it's going to be very unlikely that a lot of the main players, and that's another great thing about NHA, very rarely are you going to have to play really off the board plays. And in the event that they are on the board there, they're probably going to be easy plays in one direction or the other. But I love the correlating plays. I love if I'm going to have Tom Brady in one of the higher slots, that I'm playing some of his wide receivers to go over as well. It only just makes sense. All right. Looking at the bottom here, I just want to talk Rob Gronkowski because I just want to get your opinion on him for tonight, for my own purposes, for NHA, for other things that I'm looking at doing around the industry. What are you doing with Rob Gronkowski? Are there any props that you like from him? Because I tell you what, I don't see it.
Let's see. So with Gronk, and by the way, we also got a super chat. So a look at what our
we're just loved in this show today. What is going on? I can't pull up the YouTube chat in the event that I just don't want to. I don't want to like mess with the good juju we have going right now.
Understood. And yeah, so Gronk is another one that's kind of, so Gronk played well at times in the playoffs, but if you remember him in the regular season last year, there was times where just like, does Rob Gronkowski still exist? What's left of him? He looked like he was like physically half the person he was last year when he first came back, but Gronk has a fairly high reception total, 3.5 over at Nos Advantage. We even projected for 2.62. And also I'm going to look at his regular season role last year. The other thing also with Gronk is, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're playing for the big picture, right? They're playing to win a Super Bowl. And I just don't know that they're really going to be pushing Gronk to be getting a mass amount of targets or really give him a huge workload in the regular season. So last year, in terms of games that he had 4+ receptions, it only happened 5 times in the entire regular season. So something, it was only a 30% outcome. And you consider that. And I think that the under is the play here with Gronkowski.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. So I was arguing back and forth with a friend. He was like, Rob Gronkowski had 77 targets last season. That's going to be, he's third in targets behind Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Well, you're missing one big piece, and that's that OJ Howard played 4 games. I think him, Cameron Brate, they can carry a little bit of the weight at tight end. Both guys that also received 19 and 34 targets, they're going to be on the field a little bit more. I got to think OJ Howard's definitely going to be on the field this time around here. Rob Gronkowski, 77 targets. I would be absolutely floored and shocked if he got to that during the regular season this time around. Over under of 65 targets for Rob Gronkowski in 2021.
I'm going to say the under, for no other reason than I just think it's so unlikely he stayed healthy. And like, that's maybe the craziest thing about Rob Gronkowski last year is that after the time off, he just didn't get hurt considering his injury history, his last couple of years with the Patriots. So that's concerned. The other thing you didn't mention also, they didn't have Antonio Brown all year. So not only are they getting those tight ends back, but there's also Antonio Brown to throw to over the middle of the field. So I expect less usage to go toward Gronk this year. But let's close the show out with the super chat we got here from Nick the Picker, who a friend of mine. I converse with him on Twitter a lot. And actually, he DM'd me right before the show had started. But he's saying Schultz versus Jarwin for receiving yards. He's wondering about an over-under of around 20 yards. So I'll say that for pulling up our projections right now for Schultz versus Jarwin. And let's see, Dallas. So we have Jarwin being a little bit more involved in the passing game of the two. We have slightly more of a target share going towards him. We have Jarwin projected for about 30 point, about, this is like as if I'm guessing the number, it's in front of me. We have Jarwin projected for 30.9 receiving yards, Dalton Schultz for 22.1. So I do expect that Jarwin is going to be the go-to guy for Dak Prescott in the passing game this year as far as tight ends go. And, we saw him have some success towards the start of last year before Prescott got hurt. So I think that he's somebody who could kind of get off to like a stealthy good start to the year now that Prescott's back.
Anything else to round out this Thursday night, opening night of the NFL?
No, just, if you guys want to play DFS in a different way, head on over to No House Advantage. They've got prop-based contests. You don't have to worry about ownership. You don't have to worry about, any salary cap or any of that kind of stuff. You just go. It's very simple to play. Over-unders on player props. It's fun. And also use the promo code Awesemo to make first deposit, get up to a $20 bonus.
And not only that, week one, massive contest, 25K, 10K to first, going 1,200 entries. If you want to have a DFS contest that you can have a shot at, you have an absolute shot using the free projections at Awesemo. You can enter that you could get 2 entries into that simply by using promo code Awesemo. Get that free $25. He's Greg Ehrenberg. I'm Eric Lindquist. I hope you guys have a blast, and we'll see you later.